pretty quickly.
Hello, and welcome everybody to Unscripted Intelligence, a podcast where we talk about human intelligence, artificial intelligence, how they intersect, and how they impact everything from education to the workforce.
On this podcast, we interview innovators, change makers, and thought leaders who are shaking things up and making waves. These conversations are unfiltered and uncharted as we make space for what isn't being discussed. And these conversations are always
Unavoidable.
Hi, everyone. I'm Michelle Lehman, the co-president of the Human Intelligence Movement and chief academic officer for ProSolve. The Human Intelligence Movement is a grassroots community dedicated to ensuring that all humans have the uniquely human intelligences they need to succeed and thrive in our AI world. It's great to be here with everyone.
My name is Arvin Ross, the co-founder of ProSolve, a company that is dedicated to building the human skills that students need in an AI-driven world. I'm also your adaptability enthusiast. I'm super stoked to be here and to be hosting this podcast. Thank you guys for joining these live conversations. Let's get into it.
Let's go. Hi, Arvin. I think you're on mute.
Oh my gosh. I said, let's get into it. Long time no see, Michelle. How are you?
Good. How are you doing tonight?
I'm well.
Well, guess what? It's back to school time. Can you believe it?
I know, it's crazy. My traffic indicators have gone up every single morning when I leave out to get my Chick-fil-A. It now takes roughly 20 minutes and not the 15 it should because of the school buses. So
yeah, you get behind one of those buses and all the way to school. So it's back to school. September's here. And, Arvin, we've had a chance to hear like some of your stories about school and what school was like for you. And I'm really curious, as you think about back to school time, if you were to rebuild something in school tomorrow, what would be the first thing you'd throw out?
I would say standardized testing. I would say my experience with that was never good. I was never a good tester, and it just always brought this weird level of shame and failure and all this, struggle that I feel like if I was assessed in a different method, I feel like I probably would have been more successful. So I'd say standardized testing.
Yeah. Well, you want to know what I would throw out?
Yeah, I was going to say you next.
I would throw out the bells. Like the bells that go every 47 minutes, it's time to move. And it just reminds me of the factory whistles. And it takes me back to when Michael, all of a sudden I lost my train of thought, Michael Lubfeld was on, where he stopped, he turned off the bells in his middle school and just did something radical. So that would be what I would do.
Yeah, it has a very Pavlovian effect, doesn't it? Your whole body kind of responds to it. But that question actually leads right into our entire discussion in this entirely new venture for us at Unscripted Intelligence. For those of you guys who don't know, if you haven't been following all the posts, we are starting a new series today, our first ever series, and it is called Redesign and Rebuild. We are asking what really needs to go, what needs to go now, what needs to grow, what needs to be redesigned in this intelligence age, right? And so we're going to be taking this concept of rebuilding and redesigning, and we're going to be bringing people onto this podcast to discuss those ideas in different ways, in different verticals, in different areas. So for today, we have classrooms in the intelligence age. So we're going to be talking about what needs to be rebuilt, what needs to be redesigned specifically in classrooms. This is, as of right now, it is just a 4-part series or a 5-part series, but it could get expanded to being a little bit more than that if the conversations keep on going, okay? So we're asking the big questions. What needs to be rebuilt in our classrooms today? Why does it matter right now? How would we redesign school if we just started from scratch? Like there was no template, there was no format. If we started with a blank slate, how would we rebuild schools? We need to talk about what needs to go, what needs to grow, a community conversation. So please, 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 we're going to have 2 guests hop on, but we want you guys, if you're listening and watching, please do chime in to some of these questions that we're going to be asking. Michelle, do you want to introduce our 2 guests?
I am thrilled to introduce these 2 educators who are in the classroom today. They are just wrapping up their school day and they're on the podcast with us this evening. First, we have Stacy, who is a member of the Human Intelligence Movement. She's a teacher, she's an instructional coach, an ed tech specialist. And Stacy's a connector. If you know Stacy, you see her on LinkedIn posting her ideas and commenting on supporting others. And she is laser-like focused on leading systems level change through the lens of equity and innovation. Stacy is mission-driven, highly reflective, and deeply passionate about building the schools of the future. So welcome, Stacy. Next, we have Tara, and Tara is our second guest, another elementary educator with over 25 years of classroom experience. We're going to have to hear what Stacy did before she was a teacher because it's kind of a cool story. She teaches computer science at a gifted academy in Arizona and leads a lot of PD around media literacy, AI literacy, and she's a bridge builder. She really sees herself as connecting students and educators and communities. And she's passionate about preparing kids for this uncertain future that we are in and building agency, collaboration, and human-centered learning. So we have 2 phenomenal educators in the house tonight, Arvin.
Welcome, welcome. You guys want to fill in any gaps? Did we miss anything in your intros?
That was such an amazing introduction. Thank you, Michelle.
You're welcome.
I know. I appreciate it too. It's really exciting to be here and chatting with you guys today.
Awesome. I love it. And I'll also introduce our third guest, which is you if you're watching. Anybody watching, listening, please feel free to chime in here, okay? So today, you guys probably heard my little intro. We are talking about redesigning and rebuilding. This is the first episode in this series. So Stacy and Tara, you guys have pretty big standards that you're going to set for this conversation that will probably mark and shape how the other episodes in this series goes. We're asking this question: do we need to keep tweaking this engine, or should we be asking the question if this is still the right vehicle? Now, before we get into those specific questions, you guys heard me toss out this phrase, this word, the intelligence age, right? Many people are asking, what does that mean? So first question is, what is the intelligence age? How does that differ? Does anybody want to share anything? Michelle, Tara, Stacy, anything? What is the intelligence age?
They're like, I don't know, Michelle.
I think
I'm still thinking on that.
What did
I
we
think
make
we're-
up?
Yeah, I think we're in it. I mean, I think that it's already arrived, and I think that we're all still trying to catch up with what is happening. So I know that when I think of my kids, I look at these kindergartners that I teach. They start school at 4, sometimes 5, 5 years old, and I think, what is the world going to look like when they're in high school or college? And it kind of blows my mind, and it motivates me every day to figure out what they're going to need and how I can help prepare them. And I have to keep up with the world too, so that I can be there for them.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think, I mentioned bells and the factory industrial age at the beginning of our time together. And that really is where we've moved out of that factory model of education, or that industrial age, to the knowledge age. And knowledge and information has been ubiquitous. And now we are moving into what I like to coin the intelligence age. And so the intelligence age really pairs artificial intelligence with human intelligence. And we are going to need to be savvy on both fronts, as you talked about, Tara, for today and in the future. So when we talk about that intelligence age, it is really the balance or the marriage between artificial intelligence and human intelligence.
Yeah, I actually love that you said that, because the way that I've kind of seen it phrased sometimes is the information is all about knowing knowledge and kind of getting facts and information into your head. And that, that marked that kind of age and that space of time. And now we've moved to a place to where we have machines that do it better, do that same thing better. And so now what we're marked by is this idea of a symbiosis between humanity and artificial intelligence, right? We see things like adaptability being a core skill, not just like some offshoot of that's like irrelevant, but we see us having to learn how to unlearn or how to relearn and how to pivot skills, or to pivot ourselves to learning skills that matter instead of just thinking of this learning, teaching thing as a static experience. We realize that now that it's flexible, that there's some ebb and flow, that there's almost this give and take with teaching and learning because of the rise of artificial intelligence.
Speaking of connectivity, I think we just lost. Tara. I'm hoping that she'll join back in, or we lost her visual.
Yeah, I think we did. While we're waiting for her, I can. There's a couple people. Saba has said they are both creating it in real time. I love it. I agree. They're both creating this intelligence age real time. I love that. I do want to toss out this next question. While we're on the topic of redesigning and rebuilding, you both have spent a tremendous amount of time in the classroom, right? And so just a question that I think I want to frame this discussion with is, was school ever really built for the world's kids, for our kids to live in the world that we have today? Was it ever really
Not at all
what we have today? Go ahead, Stacey.
Not at all. It was definitely built for a different time period with different outcomes intended. And we've evolved so much, but the school system has not evolved in the same way. We're constantly trying to catch up. And I think right now we're kind of at this pivotal moment where like things are going even faster now with AI. And so how do we get schools to move even faster in the right direction to evolve and to center humanity over just rote memorization or students sitting in desks receiving information? How do we turn them into creators who are curious, who are deep thinkers, who are reflective? I think that school was not built exactly for that purpose, where we are right now and where we're trying to go.
She's back. I think we're picking up some background noise. I don't know if that is like, do you want to try muting? And I know it's kind of a, maybe that. And then when you've got a comment, unmute and we'll throw you in.
Love it.
Okay, so Arvin, here's what I was thinking about that question. Were schools ever really built for the world we live in, right? Think about the workplace. Like, think about the work we do every day. It's highly collaborative. We're solving problems collectively. No one is, we're having to go out and find information and then apply it to something that we want to innovate and build and create. And when we think about school, we rarely see that type of learning happening. And so we wonder why there's a gap between kids not being prepared for today's workforce, because the workforce has changed. Like, it's moved from the hierarchical sense that the leader or the boss had all the information and workers did what they were told. And instead, we see managers stepping back and really waiting for employees to come with the ideas and the innovation and the answers. And I just think we're not doing our kids justice and serving them well, because the classroom, the day-to-day world that they live in the classroom, does not reflect the workplace.
110%. And I would even add to that, especially being at ProSolve, our company is just very, very forward thinking and kind of a Renaissance mindset. But when you look at how we learned, right, it's not about collaboration. There's a distinct line between learning and working. right? Or at least that's how we were taught. That's how I was brought up in education. And I feel like where I see companies at today is we enjoy the blurring the line between learning and working. And I think when we're talking about the intelligence age, that is a key characteristic, that it's no longer you just learn all this information and then you work the information that you've learned. It's while I'm working, I'm learning. I want to hire people. I want to hire individuals who have the capacity to learn new skills, to learn new things on the job. It's not saying you just come in with no experience, but you don't let your experience become the barrier to solving a problem. And I think that's what a lot of CEOs and a lot of companies are seeing, that we just put a lot of value on. I don't want there to be this line between learning and working. So yes, I totally agree that school is not preparing us for that kind of world.
Absolutely. Let's look at Jason's comment, and then we lost it. He says kids are moving. He says no, just full stop. No. Kids today are moving at a pace that traditional school can't keep up with. We see a lack of engagement because kids are wanting more purpose and meaning, not memorization, compliance, and conformity. We need to help students think like artists, tap into their innate creative capacities that our world so desperately needs right now.
Jason,
well said, Jason.
Well said. Thank you for that comment. We might need to bring him on later. He seems like he's got some good thoughts. Might need to bring you on here, Jason. What is like one thing that feels incredibly outdated? I want everybody to answer this question. One thing in classrooms that is just the epitome of outdated and should have been scrapped years ago.
You know, I want to go with kind of am I fine? First of all, I had some, we're good. Okay. Cause that static was terrible. I was hearing it. Sorry about that.
No.
I've taught for a lot of years, and I've taught in a lot of different kinds of environments. And one thing that happened when I started teaching at my current school that was at first out of the box for me and a little uncomfortable, out of my comfort zone, but something that I am 100% here for and think all schools should do, is have flexible spaces for kids and for students. And so if you notice behind me, my walls completely collapse, and the learning space next door becomes another space for me to collaborate with the teacher next door. We team teach and we collaboratively teach. It's not team teaching where we split up topics to save time. We plan together, we teach together, we finish each other's sentences. And I can't tell you how elevated my teaching is since that happened. So I don't think teachers should be in silos. I don't think students should be in silos. That is very uncomfortable for a lot of teachers. But the idea that people should be walking through your space, people should be contributing, teachers should be working together, multi-grade levels, multi-subject areas, is something that has changed the game for me with teaching. And I think all schools should do that.
Absolutely. So scrapping the silos. I love it. What about you, Stacy?
My school's kind of in a bit of a transformational phase where we're trying to get out of our silos and do more things collaboratively. So I love that example, Tara, of how you've like literally just taken down the wall. Like physical walls have been removed so that you can do that work together. But I would say the thing that I think needs to just completely go away is our current grading systems. I think that grades have valued productivity and compliance more than learning, and we've totally trained our students to value the points, and it's gotten crazy with the grading.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I actually said that at the top end before we invited you guys on, so I could not agree more. Michelle?
Yeah, I would just elaborate a little bit on what I talked about with the bells. What that really means is like a compartmentalizing learning. So what's got to go is the lack of interdisciplinary, the lack of cross-contextual learning, and this idea that I do math class, then I do science class, and I do English class. And instead, we need to really be thinking about the big ideas, the essential questions across all of these disciplines, because that's how life is. You don't just go in your job do math for an hour, and then later I'm going to do writing for an hour. It is very connected. And so I think that's what Jason and I are like on the same wavelength. Learning silos need to go. And our school systems ignore the complexity and nuance of the world because learning is sorted into these neat, compartmentalized departments, and the world is interconnected, yet our schools seem so disconnected. I think he beautifully articulated what I tried to say. And I think with that comes that grading piece, like you said, Stacy. And then I got so excited hearing about your learning space, Tara, because like that, again, you're breaking down those silos, you're connecting. What's the person that teaches next to you? What's the subject they teach?
I'm so glad you asked about that.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you asked because she's amazing. She was a fourth grade teacher here, and we collaborated. I teach computer science, and when she was a fourth grade teacher, I collaborated with her team on a lot of things. The two of us traveled to ISTE together, which is a big tech conference, as you know, and she was like, I need to do something like this. And we started brainstorming at ISTE about like, what could we do together? Like, what would be cool? And we're a maker school. We love to build things. And we had a maker space that just wasn't being utilized. And she was like, I'd love to run the maker space. And I'm like, okay. So we came to our district with an idea, and we didn't have this class. It was created for this purpose. I won't say specifically for her, but she did end up getting the job, which was very great. And we do a lot of our lessons together collaboratively. So we take the computer science aspect from my classroom. We do physical computing, circuitry, that kind of thing. We build things in her classroom, and then we combine them to create these amazing projects like the School of the Future project, which is what kind of got me here in the first place, because I made a comment to you about how we're building schools with sixth graders.
I love that. Oh my goodness. We have a comment by Gary Ament. What is the alternative to grading? How do you determine if the student has gained competency? Bro, can we take that question and like just make a bat signal just like in the middle of like the US, and just have every single district try to answer that question? That is the, as a matter of fact, let's shift gears. Let's answer that question. Can you toss it back up for us, Jenna? What is the alternative to grading? How do you determine if a student has gained competencies? I want to toss that back to you three and anyone else who's watching. How do we determine competency?
It's funny because we were talking about like intelligence and the intelligence age, but what is intelligence and what are we assessing? And I think that when we talk even about like standards-based grading or competency-based grading, it's still kind of missing the mark of like, if we're talking about really preparing students for the world beyond K-12 or college education, we need to be focusing on their human intelligence skills, their empathy, their reflectiveness, their problem solving, creativity. And so we could be doing some kind of assessment around those skills. There could be more self-assessment, more focus on the process than the product. Those are the types of shifts. Like grades are set up to kind of block all of that and make it like you receive the grade, you get the diploma, you get the next thing, but it doesn't really work that way. We need to focus on what is actually being developed and how students are learning. So I think a lot of the time we are just assessing the wrong things and not really focusing on the growth. So for me, I would prefer to not have grades at all. That would be the alternative. But in order to, yes, go ahead, Michelle.
I was just going to say, how would you know whether a child was ready to go to the next grade or ready to graduate without grades? Like what in your perfect world, what would that look like, Stacy?
I mean, I'm just dreaming big here because we can, right? Like, let's just dream big. Like, what if we didn't have to like have kids move all at the same time to the next grade level? What if we did just show up to school and learn with the other humans in the room? What if we didn't create these barriers that we had to get through.
Mhm.
Like it would require a lot of things that need to be dismantled in order to completely get rid of grades. So I get that I'm off in la la land saying dismantle grading. But at least if we can, within the system that we are given, at least make the changes that we can to head in a better direction, right? To
Yeah.
remove some of those barriers.
Well, you're absolutely right. And I wouldn't, like, grading is like the holy grail of, things to conquer and overcome in education. It's like one of the biggest barriers and roadblocks. And I think we do need to be talking about the system and be pushing on the system. So I think whether you say you're dreaming big or not, this is the time to have these conversations. And I think maybe it is like a first step is a body of evidence, a portfolio, like Jason said, an exhibition of student agency. Like I think maybe before we say we're going to get rid of grading, focus on what are we grading, and I think that's what you're saying, Stacy, is like assessing the different things and having different modalities of kids showing us what they know. So it's not the end of the unit test that they show us what they know, or the 5-paragraph essay that they show us what they know, but instead, how are they adding real value to the world? How are they making a difference in their community? How are they building their own agency and their own metacognition about what they're learning? Like, if we start, that's what I think you're saying when we talk about assessing human intelligence. And so it's not to say we wouldn't necessarily put a grade on that, but to start with, I feel like a step would be to just assess things that matter, to measure what matters, and then we can tackle no grading. It's like, how do we cross this huge chasm that we have?
I totally agree. I definitely feel like the first question is, what are we assessing? Why is that wrong? And then what can we be assessing, and what is more in line with what will prepare students for today? And I think I agree with you. When we're talking about intelligences and redesigning or rebuilding our grading structure, maybe we don't need to get rid of it completely, like you said, but maybe we need to completely redesign how it works. And so in my perfect world, I mean, y'all know me, I'm a challenge designer. I design immersive experiences. That's been a huge part of my career in education. And so my answer would just be, let's create a bunch of challenging situations. I'm not saying like quite Hunger Games or Maze Runner, but like, you get the concept, right? Like, let's create some really intricate, well-designed challenges and difficult situations, and then allow them to navigate those situations, right? And then have some component to measure and to observe them as they're doing it. It could be AI now. There's a lot, you guys, there's a lot of cool stuff out there that I can't even talk about yet, but there's a lot of cool stuff out there that can actually measure students' abilities, intelligences, and aptitudes while they're solving problems real time. And it's not so much that the grade is a stamp on their chest, but how they did in this particular challenge is how they did in this specific challenge. It's not an indictment against who they are, but it is an observation of how they approach and how they attack this specific challenge. And so I'm a big fan of simulation work, and I'm a big fan of creating simulated problems and allowing them to kind of figure it out in an environment where there's other people there, so that they can work on those SEL skills.
Yeah, sorry, I missed a lot of that. Again, I'm having technical difficulties. How about we throw kids on a podcast where their device keeps misfiring? That might be a good way to start. And I don't know if this was mentioned already, but the idea that the final product isn't the whole piece of it, that whatever the journey is to get there is also part of the assessment, and the feedback that they're able to give and receive, teacher to student and student to student too, I think is really important. How they receive feedback from each other along the way, how they treat each other, things like that. I don't know if that was mentioned, but that is the first thing that comes to mind for me.
I'll say this, Gary, what if, just hear me out. What if we had a bunch of students completing complex challenges and situations, and we had like all of the teachers in like a in one of those one-way mirror rooms where they're observing, or like 1,000 cameras, and they're observing all of these students solve these problems, and they're each just taking notes, looking at the communication, the collaboration, seeing who's more outspoken, who's more reserved, just watching the light bulbs go off real time, and then taking notes, right? Clearly, we can't do something like that, because I feel like there would be so many teachers. Actually, let me say this: that would be problematic, but it would be a problem that we could probably solve and get some stuff out of. But imagine if instead of those teachers, we had an artificially intelligent bot that could observe these challenges real time, make those connections, trained by teachers, trained by the educators who know what to look for, creating rubrics and different things like that. And then we put the students in that environment. That's my 2 cents.
Why do you think that's a problem, Arvin?
So I just think about all of the differing. I just can see a bunch of teachers sitting up in like an auditorium with a bunch of monitors and just watching these different aspects. I feel like one teacher could not take in all of the data that's happening with like 5 kids trying to solve a problem, let alone a classroom of 30. So I see there being just some gaps in the computing ability that we would have with just people.
Yeah. So, and I think for me, the challenge is it takes the human out of the loop. Like it takes the teacher out of the classroom. What I love about your scenario is that the teacher observing students doing things like that gets to what I'm hearing Tara and Stacy talk about, is this idea of the process of learning. And so like as they're solving a challenge, working on a problem together, where do you see interactions? Where do you see collaboration? Things like that happening in real time, that freeing the teacher up to observe that and watch that and coach and guide and mentor versus being at the front of the room delivering content is where we want to go. And the challenge, I think, is in a classroom of 30 plus kids, how do you assess all of these kids at once when all of this activity is going on? And I'd be really curious if Stacy and Tara have had any experience with, assessing group work and assessing problem solving, and how do you do that as a teacher? How do you capture what kids' strengths and areas of growth are?
When you're working on a project with a group of kids, especially I usually group them, so they're never working independently, they're working as collaborative units. It emerges very quickly who's able to work together, who's requiring a lot of my time, as far as like they're not solving problems together, they're not working as a unit, like whatever the problems may be. So I think that if you tune in to the kids, and again, we're not standing up in the front of the room talking, we give them direction, we give them a goal, and then we guide them along the way. It becomes pretty clear who is struggling, who is using those critical thinking skills, who is using good judgment, who we're really having to sit down with and how they struggle. We have them do portfolios, which helps with the actual output, I guess you would say, or some kind of a project. And then also I'll go back again to my team teaching model. There is myself and Krista in the classroom together. So while one of us is putting out a fire, the other one is observing, and we're keeping notes on our collaborative classroom together. So that helps a lot, having 2 people in the room who are completely tuned into what the project goal is and how we're going to get there.
I love that. Let's take a second and let's take everything we talked about. Let's throw it out the window, right? Everybody on this planet disagrees with us, says this is wrong. Education is fine the way that it is. Nothing that needs to change. What is the cost? What is the cost of education system staying the same? What is the cost on our students, on our teachers, on our communities? What is the cost if we don't change?
I think we're already seeing a lot of that. I think we're seeing students that are disconnected from the purpose of school, that are wondering why they need to show up every day. And there's a lot of apathy that comes with that, and checked out, and chronic absenteeism. Like, we're starting to see more and more of that. That is the cost of everything that you just said, Arvin. And so I think the more we can transition to what we were describing before that, of being more process oriented, and really pulling in portfolios and project-based learning, all of those things that change it up, I think that gives students more purpose and meaning.
Yeah.
And that will help them
Sorry.
to develop the agency. That's the agency piece that they need, right? If we aren't developing students to have agency and be decision makers, then they won't have the power to, or feel like they have the power to, change the future systems that they are going to be developing for all of us, right?
Yeah, yeah. Kids need, exactly, Stacey. I was like, purpose. That was the word I had on my mind too. If students don't know why they're here, then it's lost. Like, kids need to know the purpose of what they're learning, and they need to know, they need to have context for that purpose. You know, if a student is struggling to learn geometry and is like, why, we've heard it a million times as parents, as teachers, why do we need to learn this? Well, what if you want to be an architect, and part of the process of being an architect is this stinky class that you have to take to get there? You know, if they know what their end goal is, or they have a purpose, then will their motivation rise? Probably. And agency is the other thing. You know, if we can create these learning experiences that are within a context of what we know we want them to learn, but we give them choice to as to how to get there, then we've got a lot more buy-in.
I couldn't agree with both of you more, that agency is the number one thing. And I think about, I have 3 young adults, they're all Gen Z, and they're a product of, 12 years of education. And I think that, like, one of the things that they also, I think many of the Gen Z epidemic that we hear about and talk about, that these kids aren't prepared to go into the workforce, and they're having to learn how to make a phone call, and they're asking their parents to join them on their annual review. Like, some of this stuff is absurd that I hear. So I can't believe everything I hear on social media. But what I do know is that the combination of kind of helicopter parenting paired with helicopter schooling, or schooling that was just given, here's the information you need to know, and I think has failed that generation. I think we're seeing it right now. I think about my oldest son, who said to me one time, "Mom, I don't know how to create anything." He needed to create a portfolio for his work, and he really didn't know where to start. And I think about this high achieving person that went through all of his years of school, just studying, getting information so that he could do well on the AP tests and do well on his ACTs. And it was all about acquiring knowledge to then regurgitate it back on an exam. And there never really was this level of creating something, being given a problem to solve, and having to really think creatively, go out and seek information, have that level of divergent thinking, that adaptability, Arvin, that you always talk about. I think that the lack of that in our schools is showing up in real time in our society with our Gen Z kids. And I don't know if you all, see what you think about that age group, if we're failing them, like, what's contributing to that. And I don't want to shift the conversation way over there, Arvin, but I think there's like some real tangible proof points of where we're failing kids. We haven't even talked about mental health or teacher burnout as part of the implications.
Yeah, I'll just add this. I feel that the cost is a lot deeper than something tangible that we can, like, point to in a statistic. I mean, I'm sure there are those things, but to me, if we do not change the way that our education system works, functions, and operates, I see the cost as being something ancient and intrinsic to us as humans, and that is that adaptability. Before we had lights and electricity, right? We were cavemen, and we were figuring out stuff. We were figuring out how to do it. Like, adaptability is not it's not something you learn in our current school model. It's not something that is taught. It is something that is intrinsic. It's nature. It's part of who we are. And I personally feel like the model we see in education now is actually built and designed to neuter that, to almost suppress that adaptability, which is a part of curiosity, right? Like you see this system that was built in the industrial age and then refined in the information age. And so what does that mean is we want a bunch of carbon copies. We want a bunch of kids to sit in the same desk, to do the same assignment, to produce the same work, to produce the same end result, right? That's an industrial. And then we add technology to it, and we just add information to some of that. Now I think what we're seeing is the need to go back to something that is natural and intrinsic to our humanity, which is that adaptability and that ability to think outside of the box. And our system is costing us that.
So when you say that, the first thing that pops into mind for me is that the teachers listening out there, if I was a teacher listening out there, my question that would be like flashing in my head is, how do I do it? How do I do it? Like, teachers are looking for concrete answers. They're looking for help to, like, how do I do that? How do I do it? What does that look like? How do kids learn that? And so that's been something that has fueled me, is to give those answers. Like, there are a lot of experts that know exactly what needs to happen, but there aren't a lot of people talking about how it's going to happen. Like, for real, in classrooms.
Well,
I totally agree, Tara. And even when we were talking about like student agency, teacher agency is also a problem. And how do teachers foster student agency if they themselves are not feeling like they have agency within the system? So
Yes.
it all trickles down.
Yeah.
I love that, and I couldn't agree more. I feel like this leads to kind of one of the more important questions of this episode, and that is, it's kind of an open-ended one. I'm giving you a blank canvas, no rules, no standards, no anything. What should schools actually look like? Spend as much time unpacking this as possible. Actually, you don't have as much time. You probably have 2 minutes each, to be honest.
I'd say just what you said, that in order to build adaptability, we have to have flexible everything. We have to have flexible workspaces. We have to have flexible, we have to give kids a space to build flexibility and to work together. So I think that it's important to build a space where kids can choose, have choice in how they move and how they learn. So I would start with that. An interesting thing that happens when we ask our 6th graders to build a school, they build our school. they build what exists because that's what they know. And so we spent time with them, showing them other schools. We found schools. Krista, my partner, and I have been to Design 39, thanks to Saba, who's worked there. We took a tour of that school, which is absolutely amazing, that space. We showed them the new AI-powered school. We showed them a news article about, what do you think about that? What would that look like? We showed them schools in Japan who clean their own schools. Oh my goodness, that would be an amazing. A lot of kids ask for life skills. When we ask, what do you want to learn at school? I want to learn how to be independent. I want to learn life skills. I want to learn how to live in the future, how to get a job, like, those are things that little kids are thinking about. How do we provide them with spaces? We should probably have kitchens. And I brag about my space. This school was built 50 years ago. This school was built in 1974. We have adapted our very old space to do this as best we can. I can't even imagine what we'd be able to accomplish if we actually had a state-of-the-art building. But we're a public school. We do what we can with what we have.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Stacy, do you want to hop in here on that?
Sure. I think Tara nailed it with a lot of that, like just really having more choice and really focusing on like creating more than we're consuming and giving students opportunities to like bring their identity into the room and to create rather than just sit and get and get and get and get and scroll and scroll and scroll. And then what do they do with all that information? They need to have a way to share what they know and apply what they know. And the real world skills is huge. Just like you nailed, Tara. It's the real world skills are the human intelligence skills that we're talking about too. Like they need to know how to learn and how to be independent thinkers. So I would love to see us reimagine school to really focus on all of those things and less of like, I don't know, the traditional sense of what you think about schools being.
Okay, I love it. Really quick fire here. I want some really quick answers. How do we get there? Just give us some sort of directional North Star. How do we get there? How do we make this happen? How do we redesign and rebuild our education system?
We empower teachers.
Listen to teachers, give them a seat at the table. There's no other answer.
I love that, bringing a seat at the table. That's very, very, that was echoed in our last podcast from last week. Michelle?
I think freeing the system from some of the accountability measures that has our system stuck. So really, we just saw the new NAEP scores came out, they're terrible, right? And so how do we free ourselves from some of those accountability measures that then put structures and systems in place that don't allow for flexibility, don't allow for autonomy, don't empower teachers? And I'll go back every day to, I believe it is the accountability measures that the principal holds teachers to, that the superintendent holds principals to. And so releasing some of that grasp in our system, I think is one of the things that we need to do, and look at how do we hold ourselves accountable to measuring what matters? So when we think about those human intelligences, how are we measuring that and holding ourselves accountable to that? And if you had an accountability measure to ensure that kids were adaptable and they were creative problem solvers and that they had self-awareness, just imagine how the system would change, because now you would create those flexible environments that you work in, Tara, and you would create opportunities for kids to have interdisciplinary lessons or multi-age environments, because in order to build those human intelligences, that's what the learning environment needs to look like. And now I'm on my soapbox, Arvin.
No, you're good. Those are all good answers. I would just add to that, to kind of summarize a little bit of what you all said. I would just add that I want to repeat what one of our guests said last week. The table needs to be bigger. There needs to be more seats. Some of these rooms where decisions are being made definitely require the voices of individuals that are not like currently there. We're seeing the side effects of a few people who don't have the same lived experience, who don't have the same taught or teaching experience, don't have the same educational experience making some of these decisions, and we are seeing the results of that. So I would just say, let's make the table bigger. Let's cause some havoc and bring more chairs to the table. And if the table's too small, then let's put the chairs on top of the table. Let's put the chairs under the table. Let's make another ring of chairs around the table. Let's get some of these voices in some of these decision-making rooms. That's what I'd say.
We're getting a couple of comments coming in just about how they would, help to solve this problem. And so we'll throw a couple of those up about technology being expensive and how do we work as a community leveraging technology and learning online at home and abroad. Jason's got a comment about, again, that idea of learning transcending disciplines, where students really are learning with, through, and with others. I love that. Not just content standards or tests and data points, more human-centered. I cannot wait to follow up with this Jason Blair. Do you guys know Jason Blair? Like,
no.
Anybody know what? I mean,
no, but we should all be friends.
We should all be friends with him.
I love it. That little notification means it is time for Unavoidable Truth. This is a part of the podcast where each of us share, and all of you watching share, an unavoidable truth that you have learned or that you have a realization you have come to as a result of this podcast and this discussion for this episode. So I will ask this question to all of you. What is your unavoidable truth for today's episode? I can go first, I think. I think I can go first. I will say my unavoidable truth is that I think that the heat is rising. Hearing you two educators pushing the boundaries and your experiences, this is not an isolated thing. I talk to educators, all across the U.S. But hearing your experiences, particularly on this episode, has made me realize, man, the tides are rising. It's not just third-party companies and entrepreneurs that are pushing these ideas. I think teachers are raising their voices, and I do think that we're going to see change because of that, because you're demanding for a chair to be pulled up, you're demanding for a voice, and I think that is an unavoidable truth, is that we're just going to continue to see that, and we're going to continue to see that rise.
Go for it, Tara.
Sorry, I have a fly now buzzing my face, so just having a day. Yeah, I agree with Arvin a lot. I think we are just at the beginning of a real turning point in education. I think we have been, for those of us who have been trying to make those changes, it's been several years, but I think it feels like things are moving in a direction where we're being listened to, and that, we know what our kids need. I feel like a truth for me is that the younger, the better. Teaching kids these skills. Kids can not only handle some of the lessons that they need to have, but they already are thinking about things deeply. I have fourth graders who tell me how AI makes them uncomfortable because they don't understand it. They're feeling powerless, and the media literacy and all of that. I think that we need to have these conversations with kids as young as possible. We need to start practicing these skills from day one of school and not wait until they're in high school with hands-on AI. My kids don't have hands-on AI. They're by our district policy, which I totally agree with. My kids aren't on hands-on on AI K through 6, but there is so much that I can teach them to get them ready for it before we even get their conversations about how to use AI, how to use certain technologies, how they feel. They're stressed about their group chats when they get home at night. I mean, that's a grown-up problem. That is not, they'll come to me and say, how do I get out of this group chat without losing my friends? I don't want to, it's stressing me out, but I don't want to lose my friends. Kids shouldn't be dealing with that kind of pressure at such a young age. So I think conversations need to be far and wide about everything related to technology and use today.
Mm-hmm. I'll go for it. So my unavoidable truth is that how is the new why. And here's what I mean. You really inspired me, Tara, to think about practice over theory, like more practical. How do we do this? Not theory about why we need to do it. And I think our education system is inundated with theory and theorists, and we're missing some of the practical, pragmatic, the how. And so that's an unavoidable truth. I can't just sit and proclaim what we need to do. I need to be alongside educators like the both of you who know how to make it happen. And so how do I help elevate your voices so that we can scale this how across our system? Because that is where the real change is going to happen. So that's my unavoidable truth.
Love it. Love it. Stacey?
I think my unavoidable truth kind of came up when Tara was talking about students describing in school exactly how they had experienced it, because I teach high school students and a lot of them are the same exact way. And if they haven't had a teacher like Tara show them alternative ways of thinking or expand their mind, then they would, give the same thing, or just I don't know is a very common answer. So I think the unavoidable truth is that we have to be pushing our students to think differently, to think creatively, to be more curious, and to not let those skills that they already have when they're little. They're very curious and ask lots of questions when they're little, and somewhere along the way that gets lost in the system. So I think we need to really unavoidably focus on keeping them little and expanding their minds as they get big so that they don't shut down and not grow.
I love it.
Stacey, I
Arvin, did
have
you-
to.
oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I could talk to Stacey all day. Sorry, but I have to agree, Stacey. Just I have to believe, as I do what I do, that if we practice enough while they're little, that it'll be no big deal when they get older. You know what I mean? That it will just be something that's so second nature to them, that questioning and that curiosity and that exploration, that they'll just continue to do that. I know that's an idealistic goal, but that's what keeps me going.
Well, it's so hope-filled, Arvin. I'm like, both of these educators bringing so much hope and like possibility into the conversation.
Yeah, I totally agree. I love that. That should be our takeaway, is that it's going to happen. It's going to be great. I love it. Really quickly, how can everybody watching keep up with you, get in touch with you, and follow your journey and just be abreast of all the stuff that you guys have going on? Can you share your socials, your info, your blogs, anything like that? Let's start with you, Stacey.
Mostly on LinkedIn. If you look up Stacey Caradeville with a lot of letters in there, hopefully you see it on the screen and aren't just listening. On LinkedIn, I post frequently. I'm also on Substack and Instagram at EdTech with Stacey. That's easier to spell.
And Jenna's dropping links for everybody, so grab those links and connect with Stacey.
Love it.
Yeah,
Love it.
same. I post on LinkedIn quite a bit. I love the conversations that happen there. And then also I post more of kind of my day-to-day, what I do in my classroom, the how on my Instagram page. It's Tech Teacher Tara.
Love that.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Thank you guys for sharing. Literally check out the comments. There are links for all of these different things. Michelle, can you tell us what is happening on the next episode as we continue this series of Redesign and Rebuild?
All right. So this week we've talked about redesign and rebuild classrooms. Next week, we're going to be talking about redesigning and rebuilding systems in education. And we have a new date and a new time. We're coming together on Tuesday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern time. And our guests, I'm really excited. Dan Fitzpatrick and Dr. Saba Kidwai are going to be our guests. Can you even believe it? Like
We're Saba's fan club over here. So
exactly, fangirls of Saba for sure, all of us. And so these two are going to really dive into what needs to change from a systems lens. And in some ways, I feel like that might be the more important question, because we got to release and rebuild this system so these amazing educators can do what they do best. And I think our system is holding you back. And I want to really emphasize that, because all of the teachers out there, I know you show up every day and do the best that you can in the system that is set and fixed for you. And so next week, Dan and Saba are going to help us think through how do we redesign and rebuild our education system. So Tuesday, September 16th at 11 a.m. Central Time, or Eastern Time.
Eastern Time. Thank you for making that. I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you all for hopping in here. All of you who commented and were sharing your thoughts. We appreciate that. These are public conversations. So we are super excited that you guys joined today. Looking forward to next week on Tuesday. We will see you all there. Thank you.